Welcome to another episode of RELICS Radio. This is a family-friendly show, so the entire family can join us as we talk metal detecting, relic, and treasure hunting. You can also call into the show at 270-495-0315 or join in the chat and post any comments or questions you might have. RELICS Radio is also now syndicated on the Cutting Edge Radio Network and is broadcast around the world. You're listening to RELICS Radio of Southern Kentucky and Middle Tennessee. And you are listening to another live version of RELICS Radio coming to you out of Southern Kentucky here tonight. The last broadcast that I did was in Charleston, South Carolina, and that was on Saturday, and then we reran that show on Relic Roundup on Monday night. Hope that you all caught that. Had a good time, but it's good to be back in the studio here in Kentucky, and want to welcome all the listeners that are tuned in tonight live on Spreaker. I see a lot of people in the chat already. Thank you guys and gals for coming in and listening to this show here tonight. Going to be a great show, I tell you. But we also want to welcome all of our listeners that are tuning in through our syndicated part of the show, and that is the Cutting Edge Radio Network. Hello to all you guys and gals as well. And also, we know that not everybody can pick the show up live, so you may be catching an archive right here on Spreaker, or you may be on iHeartRadio or iTunes or Apple Podcast, Podbean, anywhere that there are podcasts, we are there, RELICS Radio. So just want to welcome everybody into the show, and going to jump right into it because I have got a fabulous guest tonight. I've got Bradley Williamson. What's going on tonight, Brad?
You know, Lloyd, I tell you, it's an honor to be on this show. When I was hearing you introduce me, I was feeling like, I hope I don't let you down. I hope I do a good job here, buddy.
Oh, so, I know that you will because, you and I have talked, and I've done research and everything, and looked at your resume. One of the first questions that I asked, what hasn't this guy done? You've been involved in just a little bit of everything.
It's funny, just segueing here. I remember one of the episodes that I was doing for the show Expedition Unknown, which I've done with Josh Gates on it's on the Discovery Channel and the Travel Channel.
Yeah,
it was the one we were doing on the Captain Kidd episode. We were out there on the island looking for it, and it was funny because some of the people we had helping us with the boats and captains, they had looked at my background, and they were calling me Captain Nemo. Like, you're a certified master captain. You're certified in every form of diving known to man. It's kind of like, and it's like, guys, I'm just me. It was kind of funny to see them just, acting so, impressed by me. And I'm like, it's just me.
Yeah, you were just walking through, and they were on their knees on both sides, just bowed down to you. I can see it now.
I wish I liked that visual. I wish.
Yeah, if you could just get that in a photo now, just stage that one and use that as your promo here, Captain Nemo. Yeah. Hey, how did you get into treasure hunting?
Yeah, actually, it's an interesting story. I'm kind of glad you asked that. And honest to God, I was 11 years old at the time or so. It was a different time. I was down in the Keys, down in Key West. And, I was down there with my family. I was exploring, just wandering around. I remember seeing off in the distance what looked like this pirate ship. And I was like, oh, neat, a pirate ship. So I go to this pirate ship, and I go up in the gangplank, and it's this, it's a real pirate ship. And I was like, wow, this is so neat with the cannons and everything. And I remember I was running around and playing on it and stuff, but I didn't see anyone. And I went to the forecastle, which is the forward part of the ship, the upper decks, and there was a sign that said, "Wait here for the tour." So I'm waiting, and I'm like, well, maybe they're down below. So I go down below into the hull of the vessel, and right there, I mean, this would capture any, imagine any red-blooded kid. This would just capture them right away. I'm seeing these displays of like a skeleton with this, wooden chest overflowing with gold doubloons, and then right next to it a stack of silver bars, and over there emeralds and pirate flags. And I was just like, I was just captivated, and I was just taken. I'm like, because everyone dreams of, it's kids, we love pirates and pirate treasure, and I was like, this is great. But, still I didn't see anyone. So I was playing around the vessel for a while, and then I went to the stern castle part of the ship, and this was, a real replica, a full-size replica of, I thought it was a pirate ship, but it was of a Spanish galleon. And I go to the stern castle, and there's like a gift shop set in there. And the stern castle is the upper decks towards the stern. And finally I see someone. There's a young lady in there, and I'm like, hey, where is everyone? When's someone going to show me around? I'm sitting there waiting at the sign. And she's like, oh, well, you got to pay. And I'm thinking to myself, being a precocious kid, this is embarrassing to admit on live radio. I'm like, you got to pay? I'm thinking, I've already seen it all. I've already been on this ship and going all over. I'm like, I'm not going to do this. So I'm going down the gangplank, and this guy's walking up walking up towards me. And again, being the precocious 11-year-old, I'm like, hey, mister, I want to go on that boat if I were you. He's like, why is that? I go, they make you pay. He's like, really? With a look of shock. Really? I'm like, yeah. He goes, come on, let's get to the bottom of this. I'm like, no, that's okay. No, come with me, young man. We're going to get to the bottom of this. So I'm like, okay. I'm just following behind him. We go into the gift shop. He says to the person that was there and said, this is my close friend. I want you to give him a personal tour of the museum, and he gets to pick one thing out of this gift shop, whatever he wants, as a gift. And I'm like, he's like, are we good? I'm like, well, yeah, wow, thank you. And he said he was super nice and happy and shaking my hand, just a super nice guy. And then, he went back into his office, and the woman said, do you know who that was? I'm like, no. She goes, that was Mel Fisher.
Wow.
And I'm like, I know. This is a true story. You can't make this up. I wish I could tell you that I was like, wow, but I didn't know who that was. Yeah. Of course, I'm still a young kid, but this was when the bug bit me. And I would love to tell you that, of course, what I picked from, as my gift at the gift shop was, one of the solid gold doubloons, or a silver piece of 8. Nope. I picked up this 25-cent treasure map that they had hanging on the wall.
There you go.
Red dots with X marks the spot. I'm looking at it right now in my office. I still have it framed, the Florida treasure map. And it's funny. I remember as a kid looking at that. It's like, okay, I'll find this wreck first. That's $5 million, and that'll fund me. And then I'll go after this next one, and that'll do it. But, that's what kind of bit the bug in me. And at that point, my whole life changed. I mean, when other kids were dreaming about being a baseball star or a rock legend, I'm reading, like, magazines. They used to be out there, like, what was it, Eastern Western Treasure, Lost Treasure, Treasure Search. I'm looking at these. I'm reading articles on metal detectors, and I'm reading about all of these. I started getting the books, Pieces of 8, and started reading about all these treasure hunters and all the stuff they were finding. And that was pretty much when, I was bitten, and it's never let up since then. Once you're bitten by the treasure hunting bug, it changes your life. Your life becomes a great adventure, full of fun, adventure, and excitement. I wouldn't change anything for all the money in the world.
Yeah. And just to be 11 years old and to meet a legend in the hobby, and Mel Fisher is, without a doubt, a legend whenever it comes to treasure hunting, especially along the Treasure Coast, there, Florida. I mean, he is synonymous with that. If you look up the Treasure Coast in the encyclopedia or dictionary, probably going to be a picture of Mel Fisher there because he's the icon of that. And then that's the way that you get started. But isn't it funny, though, almost all of us, and you know, I have the privilege of interviewing so many guests throughout the year, and there's always that one moment whenever destiny connected with you and the treasure bug. And it happened to you whenever you were 11 years old. And it's amazing to me that the first thing that you pick, having the opportunity to pick anything out of that gift shop, that you pick the map. Because that is out of everything that's there, you know, still the map is the most important thing. The research is still the most important thing in this hobby.
You know, a lot of people don't realize that, but I was talking to Taffy Fisher, Mel Fisher's daughter. It's interesting because later on, you know, I found myself working with and being friends with these legends. You know, I got to know Mel Fisher personally, worked with him. You know, Mo Molinar, John Brandon, Harold Holden, of course, Commander Bob Weller. Some of these legends in the industry I got to work with. But going back to what we were just mentioning, when I was talking to Taffy that one time, it was interesting. Taffy and I were talking about it, and we're saying, people don't realize, they think, you know, once you find the wreck, that's when the work begins. It's like, no, 90% of the work is done, or anything, you know, the lost gold mine, the sunken ship, anything. By the time you find it, 90% of the work is already done.
Exactly.
All the hard research, all the surveying, all the searching, all the permits, all the, you know, dealing with, you know, different legal issues that may need to be addressed. So you have the rights to proceed forward with the recovery.
Right.
So there's so much behind the scenes people don't see that really goes into play before you do mount a full expedition. So yeah,
and
you're absolutely right.
You have done that on a major level, but even on a minor level, like a lot of our listeners and myself, you know, we do metal detecting and treasure hunting in our own right. But you have no idea how much time that we spend researching, and then the dry runs when you go out and you're walking the land, you got boots on the ground, and you come up with a dry run. And you know, everybody, a lot of people that are getting into the hobby, whether it's in the water or on land, they think it's easy because you see the shows, you see the videos and everything, and all of these people are finding stuff. Let me tell you something. That's like maybe 3% of the time. The rest of the time, it's boring and grueling and hard work.
You know, you hit it right on the head. But I got to tell you, and I'm sure you feel this way, and I'm sure a lot of the viewers and our listeners in the audience feel the same way. I tell you, once you find that first thing, like I'll never forget to this day, you know, I found my first silver piece of 8, my first piece of real authentic treasure.
Yeah.
I can tell you everything, every detail about that day. You know, it's an experience you never forget, and it changes your life because all of a sudden you're holding history in your hand, and you think about, well, okay, you know, who's the last person to hold this? What's the story behind this? And, you know, and then you mentioned like all those days, they become easier to deal with because you never know. I used to say it's like opening a box of Cracker Jacks. As a kid, you never know what you're going to get.
Right.
You could go out there and you could, you know, dig up how many hits, how many holes. Okay, it's another nail, another beer can, another pop top. But it's that excitement of never knowing because one of these times it is going to be something really unique, you know, either a silver coin, a gold coin, or an artifact.
I remember the first time that I found a piece of Spanish silver, a real. I'll be honest with you. It was a half real. I had no clue what the thing was. I mean, I cleaned it up. I knew it was old, and I knew it because it had a date of like 1780s. I can't remember the date on it. And I've been fortunate to find several since on colonial houses. But I knew then that I don't want to hunt parks anymore. I don't want to hunt schoolyards anymore. I want to hunt the oldest places that I can find in my county because stuff like this right here that is 200-300 years old, you have an opportunity to hold that in your hand and try to relive the moment, you know, how hard did those people look for that when they dropped it? Because, you know, money didn't grow on trees. It doesn't even today, but it especially didn't then. Hey, Brad, we need to run a commercial. We'll be right back in just a moment. I'm excited to announce that Tim Henderson of Murray Branch Outdoors has rejoined RELICS Radio as a sponsor. As a multi-line dealer, Tim carries several brands of detectors and accessories, and he's ready to serve all of your metal detecting needs. I'll give you his contact info in a minute. So why did RELICS Radio go back to Tim Henderson as our dealer sponsor? 3 very important reasons. First, I often hunt with Tim, so I know firsthand that he uses what he sells, and he prides himself with great customer service and support. Second, Tim goes the extra mile in helping the new detectorist determine exactly what they need to get started. He will not try and sell you some high-priced product if that's not what you need. And at the same time, Tim can serve the seasoned detectorist with their upgrades or new product questions. And finally, Tim won't leave you hanging after the sale. He's just a phone call away for any questions or specialized training needs. So, you can call Tim directly at 615-948-4611, or you can email him at tjhenderson@comcast.net. And yes, I'm so glad to have Tim back on board. And Tim is in the chat tonight. And by the way, MurrayBranchOutdoors.com is his website, but he prefers you to call him or to reach out to him, email at tjhenderson@comcast.net. Guarantee you that this guy is going to put you on the detector that you need and not try to sell you something that you don't just to make money out of the deal. And by the way, Tim and Tennessee Jeff went down to Florida, and they got to go to the Mel Fisher Museum and meet the family, and they actually stayed in the condo down there. So he knows kind of what we're talking about here. Brad, we didn't really get out of the background segment. I want you to talk about Bob Weller a little bit if you can.
Sure. Yeah, I was actually lucky enough because I was doing a lot of this stuff on my own. As I mentioned, after meeting Mel, I was kind of doing some expeditions on my own. You know, we talked about the episode where I was trying to run away to South America at the age of 15 to find the lost treasure of the Incas. So I was, like I said, it was something that I was actively pursuing and just always interested in. But when I was, I think about 23, I was lucky enough to meet up with Commander Bob Weller. He's also known as Fogfoot, a.k.a. Frogfoot. And I don't know what it was, but we just clicked. I mean, he took me under his wing, and I trained under him for at least 25 years. You know, he's one of the legends in the industry, written numerous books, found, amazing treasures, throughout his history. A lot of them documented, a lot of them have been on the news, international news. And, it was interesting when I met him, within about 3 weeks, I was calling him Dad, and he was calling me son. I never had much of a family growing up, and it was interesting. I'll never forget when I was going off to D.C. to work on my MBA, my Master's in Business Administration. I asked Bob, why did you take a chance? Why did you take me under your wing? Because in this industry, we kind of look out for each other and police ourselves because when you're on the bottom, it's very easy. Someone can just, we call it sleeving a coin.
Yep.
They can, they're down there and they find something and they come back up top, the surface. You find anything? No, I didn't find anything. And they just slipped it somewhere in their wetsuit or something. So there really has to be a level of trust. And we're a team out there, and we have our regular guys. Every now and then we bring in someone new, but generally it's a core group. And he said, Brad, I saw so much potential in you. And he said, I cared more about you than I do my own kids. And I'll still never forget that to this day. And, but Bob was an amazing gentleman. When you think about it, he was one of the co-authors of the Navy Dives Manual. He served in World War II, the Korean War. He was with UDP Team 1, which is one of the forerunners of today's Navy SEALs.
Yeah.
This guy did amazing things. Literally behind enemy lines on a surfboard. Honest to God, in the Korean War, exited the sub on a surfboard and was, monitoring troops doing that. Dated Marilyn Monroe. Just an amazing man. I was lucky to have him and learn from him and have him to be one of my mentors in my life. So
sounds like
you can't speak highly enough of him.
Yeah, sounds like an amazing guy. Amazing.
Yeah.
And fortunate, that you got to spend time with him and got to train under him. I'm sure that's something that will stay with you for the rest of your life. And it probably shaped the person that you are today, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and I'll tell you one thing, segueing a little bit here. I'll never forget, the first season I'm out there diving with him, and I'm sure a lot of the viewers can relate with this. I'm out there. I'm living a dream. I'm diving for sunken treasure. We're staying in this townhouse that's overlooking the ocean. All my meals are covered, and if you're a resident diver, you're actually getting paid. And back then we were bringing up coins every day. I'm like, okay, this is it. I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. I'm going to be a professional treasure hunter. Bob said, Brad, no. Go back to school, finish your bachelor's degree, keep this as a hobby, but get your degree, get a good, stable job that you can always, take care of your family and pay the bills. It was interesting, that was his position on it.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, one time when I was working for him, I talked about going back to college, and he's like, but I was just talking, and he's like, okay, Brad, get a piece of paper. I'm like, why? Don't ask me. I'm paying you. You're working for me. Just get the piece of paper. I'm like, okay. And, of course, I'm showing my age here when he said, it's a typewriter. And he said, I want you to write a letter. Get the typewriter. And he said, you're going to write to the college you attend and ask for your transcripts. And, I did that, and we followed through. And it was interesting because, I don't know, we may have talked about this, but because of him, I went back. I finished. I got my degree. I've been a 4.0 honor student in the Honors College. I'm actually now, I was trying to decide between Harvard or Johns Hopkins for my master's. I'm moving forward with Johns Hopkins right now. I'm a nice problem to have, a master's in genetic engineering. But, this wouldn't be if it wasn't for him. Not only did he influence me in the treasure hunting and my personality, but just, as you mentioned, in my overall life. And I'll never forget when I graduated college. And because, Bob saw a lot of action in both wars. He has a slew of medals. He would never talk about it. He'd always say, you go do what you have to do, and you leave it home. He didn't brag, anything like that. But his, the military was kind of behind him. But when I got my degree, we were going through the ceremony, I looked up in the audience, and sometimes I get choked up when I talk about this. I saw him standing there applauding me. I looked at him, and he saw me, and we made eye contact, and he stood there, and he saluted me.
Oh, me.
And, coming from someone like that,
right?
Even right now, I just got goosebumps. A lot of times I get choked up about it, but that really, that was something for him to do. That was something he took very seriously. Yeah. His recognition of what I'd done.
He called you son, and that's what a dad does. Whether it is whether he is your physical dad or not, he took that role and he gave you the best advice that he could, and it worked. It really shaped your life and sent you in the right direction. No doubt about it. You've just met so many great people and been with so many people. And
I've been blessed.
Yeah, and one of the things on your resume that I went and actually watched this. You were with Josh Gates. Well, you've done more than one episode with Josh Gates on Expedition Unknown. And by the way, I went in this week and I've got that saved on my DVR. Everything that he does now, I'm watching. So you can tell Josh that that you got him some support from me. But I watched the Captain Kidd episode. Great episode.
Gotcha.
Yeah, great episode.
It was.
Talk about it.
Just from the visual perspective, I remember when we were on location filming, I was talking to Josh. I was just like, just from a visual standpoint, this is spectacular. I'm on location, and just some of the scenes from when we were diving was so majestic. So on Mona Island, the caves. And one thing I will tell you, I actually have some articles, I think, on my personal site and on my business site, personal site, BradleyWilliamson.com, business site, TreasureExpeditions.com. I have some behind-the-scenes articles on there. It's interesting because, like, a little bit of behind-the-scenes info. Josh is a super nice guy, extremely down-to-earth. That's one thing that makes the show work. You see, he doesn't take himself too seriously. He'll laugh at himself. Yeah, and there's a comfort level because you feel like, he's your bud. He's one of the guys.
Yeah.
And, one thing that was interesting, when we did that episode on Captain Kidd on Mona Island, it was interesting because, there's always people that ask me, it's like, okay, is that real? What's going on and stuff? And this is a true behind-the-scenes story. As I mentioned earlier about when we were doing that episode, we hired a boat captain and a dive master, and, they were looking at my background and thinking I was something special, which I was like, no, I'm just me. But it was interesting. That island is pretty much, we the private citizens can't really get on it. It's owned by, I forgot the name of the government office, but it's basically, there's park rangers that are on it.
Right.
And, the head park ranger, it was actually one of the producers, pulled me aside and said, Brad, this guy has been reading up on you, and he has been so anxious to meet you. He's really looking forward to it. I'm like, okay, don't know who he is, but sure, I'd be happy to meet with him. And he pulled me aside, and he was showing me some of the treasure that he personally has found there. Because, of course, they're not supposed to be doing that, of course. So it was supposed to be quiet. And now I'm just saying this on national television, going live, recorded forever. Okay. So much for my career as intelligence, keeping secrets. But it was interesting because he was showing me some of the treasure that he's found there on that island in those caves. He wanted to get my thoughts on it and everything. So, it's there is so much stuff there. If we could ever be able to really go back there and do it again, it'd be great. But, when you're working on a TV show, it opens up a lot of doors. It gives you access, but it's not permanent. Right. You can go there for a little bit. But,
still
another thing I will say, because
it's still a great experience for you, though. I mean, an experience that not everybody gets to enjoy.
Yeah, and I mean, I was thinking about it. It's like, boy, talk about a rough day in paradise. You're down in the they fly down in the Caribbean. They're paying you, and you're out, covering all your expenses. You're out looking for pirate treasure. You're diving on one of Captain Kidd's vessels in the beautiful, warm tropical waters. And it's just. And I was thinking about it. It's like, this is really one of Captain Kidd's ship that you're diving on right in here. This is incredible. You're
getting to do what you dreamed of doing when you were 11-year-old in that museum at that time.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly.
And, you were talking about Josh Gates. There's one segment in that show where he finds the piece of 8. Y'all are in the cave, and you're metal detecting there, and he finds that piece of 8. And he makes the statement that all of us make, because he said, I'm never leaving here. I'm spending the rest of my life right here.
I know.
And that's what you want to do, but you can't.
I know, and unfortunately we can't because, it begs the question, why aren't we back there? But we can't because, unfortunately, like I said, there is stuff there. Oh, my God. I probably shouldn't be saying this because now people are going to, probably the park rangers or whatever government agency runs that island is going to get mad now because it might get inundated by people going there. But, yeah. And, one thing I will tell you also, another kind of behind-the-scenes thing, they really do the research. And I mentioned this to him because Josh is a great guy. I've actually got him on my phone. I could call him on speed dial right now, and he'd pick up. Yeah. Great people. Same with the whole production crew, the producers, the cameramen, the sound techs are all really good people. I've done several episodes with them. I think the most recent one I did was on the pirate Jose Gaspar, and before that was on the pirate Jean Lafitte, and before that was Captain Kidd one we're talking about. But, what always impresses me is the research that they do. They do incredible research before we go on. Like, I'm being hired as the expert, and they're coming up with information that I haven't, and valid information, from the archives and documents. So I know we're getting a little bit close to going into another commercial here. So, we would love to go on more with this stuff. But, because I've also done some work with Philippe Cousteau on his show. I've got a couple other TV shows I'm working on, but I don't know if you want to get me to go into that now or in a little bit. I'll tell you what, let's just go ahead and run a commercial right now. We're about 30 seconds out, and we'll do that, and then we'll talk about Jacques Cousteau's grandson, I guess is who it is. Anyway, you got it.
All right, we'll be back then. T-shirts are a perfect way to get your brand recognized, whether you're talking about a business, a club, a sports team. your YouTube channel, or whatever. But you may have asked, where can I get quality, affordable shirts on demand? Well, I'm glad you asked. RELICS RADIO uses DetectTees.com for all of our T-shirts, long sleeve shirts, and hoodies. That's DetectTees.com. Ken and Mark Guthrie make quality shirts that last, they ship quick, and best of all, they're affordable. So if you need customized apparel, then go to DetectTees.com and be sure and tell them that RELICS Radio sent you. Great shirt makers. They make great hoodies, which we're wearing right now. In the summertime, they make the great cooling towels. Anything to do with RELICS Radio, they make it. And other outlets as well, other YouTube channels and other treasure hunters. Just a great bunch of people to work with. And I tell you what, Brad, you're great to work with, too. I can tell that you're a professional because
Thank you.
I told you before the show, I said, we have a commercial at 15 after at the bottom of the hour and 15 till. And I said, if you'll kind of watch, we can break a segment up. I tell that to everybody, and this is the first person that right in the middle of a conversation says, I see we're coming up on a commercial break. So very, very professional. I appreciate that. But Philippe Cousteau,
yes.
What are you doing with him? And that's another show on the Travel Channel. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, they called me. It was interesting because, honest to God, I was literally I was involved with them with a pilot episode, which launched the whole show, or series, I should say. And I was literally working in the lab in one of my biotechnology, genetic engineering courses. I'm sitting here in my lab coat, working with DNA. And I'm like, I got to go for some filming. Raced down to the Keys. Left, I did, about a 2-hour drive down there. And we were doing the filming. And once again, I guess I've been lucky because so far everyone I've worked with has been so down to earth and personable. And I think that's when you tell someone who's really comfortable with themselves is when they don't have to put on airs. They don't have to, carry some facade. Like I said, Josh has been that way. Philippe Cousteau has been that way. Several others that I've worked with. And, here's this guy, Philippe Cousteau. And again, I'm showing my age because I can remember, Jacques Cousteau, who he's descended from, and the amazing undersea world of Jacques Cousteau. It was on TV with Eclipso, and they just really opened up the whole diving world to the diving industry to the world. Excuse me. He was super nice, super down to earth. Same with his wife. Again, super nice, super down to earth, and I guess the character that I'm playing is me. All the different shows, but, they wanted me, the idea, the premise was that, they're down there in the Keys and they meet up with a successful treasure hunter who shows them some of the treasure he's found, and he talks about it and they get excited, and that starts their whole journey through all these locations to the Caribbean to go do some filming.
Right.
And it was fun. We were on location, and I brought a bunch of stuff with me for the filming and stuff. And it was interesting. When we started this before, we did some footage. I was with Captain Fizz. We were at I think it was a pirate festival in Vero Beach or something. The producer. That's when we initially met, and he wanted me to go down and do the filming for this pilot episode. But I remember that night we were talking about it. When we did finally do the filming of the pilot episode, and there's always that hope and excitement that, is this going to get picked up? Is the network going to like it? Are they going to run with it? And I was so happy to see that the network really liked the episode that we shot, and they decided to run with it, and it became a series. They've called me for several more. It's just sometimes it's hard to find the time because I've got Expedition Unknown. They call me every season if I have any ideas or anything they'd like to, that they may be interested, because they're always looking for stuff. So, they're always calling me every season. They just recently called me. It's like, Brad, you got anything going on? We'd love to do some more filming with you. And same with the producer with the Cousteaus who called it. Sometimes it's just hard to find the time to break away.
Yeah. That's a good problem to have, though, isn't it? To be in demand like that.
Yeah, but here's the reality of it. Again, behind the scenes, TV doesn't pay. And, I talk about this with the producers. Yeah, right now, being on TV, I don't take it too seriously because there's like 300 channels now, 24/7. I mean, my God, I think they've got meter maids on TV, or they used to have them on TV, so it's like, I don't take it too seriously. And, when you hear these salaries of, oh God, what's it, that TV show The Big Bang Theory, and they're making like $1.5 million per episode. And it's like, yeah, some people also win the lottery.
That's right.
Every producer I've spoken to, they all say it's one of the toughest industries. And, doing a show like that, there's not a lot of money in it. You would think there is, but again, because people just see the stuff that makes the news.
Right.
It's a labor of love. When we're on location filming, I tell you honestly, I tell the people ahead of time, when I see Josh, we're always joking about it, that I'm planning on, it's like 18-hour days. Maybe I'll get some sleep. Maybe I won't. It's hard work. And just as, they're wrapping up one episode, they're getting ready to move. They're already prepping and building for the next episode to be shot.
Right.
There really is no downtime. It's a labor of love doing, the TV industry today.
And that pretty well describes almost all of treasure hunting. It's a labor of love.
Good point.
It's something that you're going to have to love. And a lot of newcomers, they go out and buy a metal detector, and they have these dreams of being rich. We all did. When you were 11-year-old and you picked up that map, you were thinking, I'm going to be a millionaire. I'm going to find all of this money and stuff, and all of this gold and silver. But eventually you begin to do it because you love to do it.
Yeah, when you watch most of the movies, again, they're fun to watch. I enjoy watching them, but you notice generally they're showing it. It's always if they're diving for something, they're diving in crystal clear waters. There's a little adventure, and they find this huge pile of gold, and they go living happily ever after. And they never, I wish for some people they have had incredible luck like that. I don't want to say it doesn't happen. Some people have actually really done that.
Yeah.
But you hit it right on the head. It's a labor of love. And I think something you mentioned earlier about when you find something, and I don't know if it was Carl Fismer said this or John Brannon, but they said, when you're holding that in your hand, you realize that, we were talking about when you're holding a relic from hundreds of years ago, all of a sudden you realize it's like, this is history.
Right.
I'm just passing through. I'm a curator. I'm just holding on to this for a little bit. After I'm gone, this will still continue on, but this is real history that I'm holding in my hand. So, yeah.
And one of my favorite movies, and I know that you were an advisor. You didn't have a major role in that film, was Fool's Gold. And that is a line out of that because Matthew McConaughey, he tells her she's thinking about leaving from there and going back to school. They're going to split up. This is before they find the treasure.
Oh yeah, that's a great movie.
Yeah, and he says, what are you going to do? You're going to sit in some room and do research and write books with a bunch of old men that are, on their deathbed? Or do you want to run your hands in the sand and pull out real history and hold it in front of your face? And that's the deal. But, just having on your resume that, you worked in a limited fashion with that movie, with Fool's Gold, with Warner Brothers.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, my role in it was with Deborah Patrick from Warner Brothers. She'd reached out to me regarding some images on my site, and then we were talking, which they wanted to use, and we were talking, and she asked for information on the Queen's Jewels, which it's real. That is a real part of history. And it's interesting, that's appeared in several movies, including a great classic, The Deep, with Nick Nolte and Jacqueline Bisset. That's probably one of the top movies on, Sunken Treasure, probably realistic as far as the recovery, but that is real, the Queen's Jewels, and they're still out there. No one's found them yet. They're somewhere out on the 1715 fleet. And interesting, I presented them to Legajos Well, legajos that's the term for the documents from the Archives de Seville in Spain, and that's where you can actually find. It's amazing. The Spaniards were incredible record keepers, and you go there, and there's literally you can find the documentation. There's like every vessel that ever sailed. I mean, you can find the ship's logs, all that information. So I gave them the true information about the Queen's jewels, and they're great, but of course they took liberty with it. I wish it was like what they show in the movie. It's a room full of gold and all this sort of stuff, but. Yeah, that was my area in it. But, I got to tell you, it's interesting because one of my good friends, Captain Fizz, which you've had him on the show.
Yes.
Because we both trained together. I was going to say, he trained under Jack Haskins and I trained under Commander Bob Weller. Two of the great legends in the industry, and it's interesting that we ended up, meeting one another and working together on several projects. But he's got, right now, from Jack Haskins, when Jack passed away, literally the largest private collection that's probably, it's worth a fortune. I'm sure Fizz talked about it when he was on the show with you.
Yeah.
He's got some great lines about it, but there's so much treasure in these documents that, that he now has in his possession. It's probably the largest, private collection of archival research on shipwrecks that are still waiting to be found and on treasures out there. So there's so much treasure still out there. We're talking mainly about Spanish galleons or, sunken treasure. But, there's so much. There's things I've done over in Egypt on projects. China, when you think about it, there's so much treasure. Like some of your viewers are probably more interested in, lost treasures from the Civil War, lost gold mines. There's just... Right. So much out there. It's amazing.
Just so many different facets of treasure hunting. You got the two major categories, on land or underwater, but just look at the possibilities that even both of those broad categories present. You've got Civil War, you've got Revolutionary War, you've got World War I, World War II. It's limitless. And then when you get in the water, I'm currently working a lake, and me and Tim Henderson and Ron Reed are going to work that this summer. It's houses that were drowned by a reservoir, and their turn of the century, early 1900s. Now that's not 1715 fleet, but it's still treasure, that you can go and find.
Exactly.
So there's, you can only find what is close to you. I wish that we had a Spanish galleon that had sunk in Del Hollow Lake, but it didn't happen, and so I'm going to have to come down there and go out with you and Fizz and with Mark and all of you guys, and we're going to talk about Scuba Wise here in just a moment. We've got about 3 minutes. I kind of want to get into some of the shipwrecks and treasure that you've actually dived. So get us started on that for a couple of minutes. We'll take a break and we'll finish that up when we come back.
It's going to take more than a couple minutes. Wow, where would I start? Let's see. I've dove on all the galleons on the 1733 fleet, all of the Spanish galleons on the 1715 fleet, recovered silver pieces of eight, gold doubloons, gold and emerald jewelry, gold chains, King C porcelain. It's actually, someone once mentioned this, and it sounds ridiculous, but you can actually get bored of bringing up silver coins. You're so excited when you find this stuff, but when you start bringing it up regularly. Now, recently on the 15th fleet, it's gotten a little harder, but it used to be, we were always bringing up coins every day. You almost can get kind of like very nonchalant about bringing this stuff up. I've done expeditions on land too. The Lost Dutchman mine. I think there's an article. There's a couple articles on that I've done that are on my websites. That's some of the stuff I've done. We were talking. You asked me about Egypt, and it was interesting because there's an article. People don't realize a lot of this stuff, but we're dealing with. There was a gold sarcophagus that was lost. It was a Fourth Dynasty pharaoh that it was lost, and I was doing some research on that. But I'm also we're getting ready to run out of time, so
Yep.
Maybe I better continue with that when we pick up.
That's fine.
Otherwise, we'll be right into this thing. And the treasure's that commercial.
No, we won't do that. We'll just take a break right now, okay, and we'll be right back. If you want to keep up with what's going on in the metal detecting world, then you need to be a subscriber to American Digger magazine. Butch and Anita Holcomb are the publishers of the magazine and have won awards for 3 straight years for being the best digger magazine on the market. American Digger magazine is available in both print and digital formats, so no matter where you live in the world, you can enjoy the latest happenings in the hobby. You can get in touch with American Digger magazine by going to americandigger.com or give them a call at 770-362-8671. And be sure and tell them that you heard it on RELICS Radio. And as most of you know, I'm on the staff at American Digger magazine with Butch Holcomb and Jeff Lubert. I'm actually the producer of Relic Roundup every Monday night at 9 o'clock Eastern right here on Spreaker. And the whole crew, just returned from Charleston, South Carolina, where we had a Relic show there, and we did a live broadcast. And you can go over to the American Digger Relic Roundup site on Spreaker and pick up those shows. Hey, Brad, you were talking to me earlier when we talked this week about a cave dive that you did that was at 300 feet. I cannot imagine that.
One of my awards for stupidity. That was up there because actually, I think there's a photo of it in that promo you do, because if you look, I've got like 4 tanks. I'm wearing 4 tanks, and one of them, right, the smaller one, that's pure oxygen. It was for a project. It was training. We were looking at doing some diving on a vessel that sank out far out in the North Atlantic, sitting in about 300 to 400 feet of water. So I was going to the Commercial Dive Academy, their deep water diving school, and it's called the 40 Fathom Grotto. It's actually, it's interesting because that's where they train for deep diving, and I think like they've got different things as you go down. Like, I'm trying to remember, but at like 150 feet, they've got an airplane that's down there. You go down to 175 feet, and they've got some platforms for training when you're down there, and they've got some vehicles. You just keep going down. And since he was one of the instructors there, and he was a friend, because I actually used him on several of my projects. We had a project in Georgia, and I grabbed him several of his divers, and we were working. We became friends. So when I was going to that school, he was kind of pushing a little, because he knew, okay, you go to the bottom, but there's several caves that go off from this, and as part of the training, I'm like, okay, well, this is good. Replicate penetrating a wreck at this depth and everything. The stupidity award, I get a stupidity award, or another one of my stupidity awards, is we're using regular air. Which, why we didn't get hit with O2 toxicity, amazes me. But, Mark Littleton and some of his friends, when they were diving and he's going to kill me, the Andrea Doria. I mean, they were going down that deep, too, on regular air. I guess you train the body to get used to it. But anyway, we're going down, and it's all pitch black at that point. And we're, going through these caves. And at this point, I'm getting comfortably narked. I'm like, not a problem. This is good. I just trust my buddy. He knows what he's doing. He's one of the instructors here. Like I said, stupidity award. And, we're going along. I'm just having a good time. Going through these caves. I ain't thinking about it. Got a little good buzz going. And I see this rope. I'm like, well, that's kind of funny looking. Why is this thing here? What is this thing? And, the next thing you know, he comes with me. He grabs the rope. We start going up. And, at that depth, and don't hold me to this. I can't remember. But, we're going through our decompression. And, hypothetically, like at 75 feet, you're decompressing for 30 minutes, 50 feet for so many, and then I know 20 feet we switched over to pure oxygen. But, because you had a long time of decompression, I really wasn't thinking about this stuff. And, we get up to the surface, and it's like, wow, Brad, I am so glad you found that rope. You don't know how close we came to buying it. I'm like, what do you mean? He said, didn't you know we blew our bottom time by like 20 minutes? We were down there a lot longer than I'm like, really? I didn't know that. I'm trusting you, dude. He's like, yeah. He's like, I got lost down there. If you hadn't found that rope, we would still be down there. We'd be dead.
Oh,
and I'm like,
goodness.
Really? I'm just like, I ain't doing this ever again.
And
especially not with you.
Yeah, Allison Walker, who we've had on the show as well. She's up in Canada. She said that's crazy. Allison, and I've never had the opportunity. It's on my bucket list to meet Allison and dive with Allison. We ain't going to no 300 feet, Allison. I'll tell you that right now. That's off the books.
To go there.
Yeah.
Segueing here, I'm probably pulling off. A lot of people don't realize a lot of the treasure is found in shallow water.
Right.
When Commander Weller, when he found what was called the Queen's Jewels, it was passenger baggage, but the 2 gold brooches with 150 diamonds. When he and his team found it, that was I think 7 feet of water. Recently, Brent, when it was in the news where he found the gold doubloons and the gold royales, that was in 6 feet of water. Some of the stuff that I found, some of the gold jewelry and everything I found is gold and emerald jewelry has been in 2 feet of water.
Wow.
So people don't realize a lot of this stuff is shallow because, you have vessels that didn't have that deep of a draft to begin with, but then you've got a storm coming in, so you've got the storm surge, which raises the water table, the wind surge, which raises the table, and then they hit the reefs, and they break up in the upper decks where a lot of the gold and the jewels were, which would be in the, officers' quarters, or the admiral, the captains. Those would break off, and they're floating into shore. And then, when the storm recedes, the water table drops back down. So, a lot of times, most of the stuff is in shallow water. So, I know the Odyssey group, they get famous for doing some deep water stuff, but if you look at most recoveries on, like the Maravilla, the Conception, and stuff like this, they're not hundreds of feet down, thank God.
Right. And, those are manageable for all of us, even a new diver like myself, And that's where I'm comfortable. I will never be comfortable at 300 feet. I'm not even going to try. I mean, I've lived to be 151 years old. They all kid me on here about being the old man. I'd like to live another 150 if I can. But, and Mark Littleton was talking there about coming down and diving with all of you guys down there at Scuba Wise. Talk about that in the Sunken Treasure workshop that you and Mark and Carl are Fizz are associated with. Yeah,
I was, been very lucky in my life with people that have been involved in my life. I wouldn't be who I am if it wasn't for the people that are in my life. And luckily, I've had, been lucky enough to have Captain Carl Fismer in my life and Dive Master Mark Littleton come into my life. And what started these workshops we started doing, I got contacted by Princess Cruise Lines to be a guest speaker. And, of course, I contacted my buddy Fizz, and we're like, let's do this. We're talking about our adventures and some of the possible treasures that are out there in different ports. And, they loved it, the Princess Cruise Lines. But, we're thinking, it's like, a lot of people in the audience that are watching this are probably thinking, well, that's nice, to watch us, but I want to do that. How do I do that? And we thought, this would be great if we set up something where we actually help people. Everyone's dreamed of doing this.
Right.
But if we can share our knowledge and experience with them, I was, like I said, worked with Commander Bob Wood, and I was lucky enough to meet another legend in the industry, Fizz, and we started working together. And it's kind of interesting because one of our presentations, we show two of the legends, Jack Haskins, who's arguably one of the top archival researchers in the world and responsible for finding more of the sunken Spanish treasure out there than probably anyone else, and Commander Weller, who's, found all these treasures himself, and, just about everyone who's diving right now owes it to the work that he's done with the Navy and stuff. And so we were lucky that we came together. And with these workshops, and I shouldn't call them workshops or seminars, it's fun. We keep them small because we want it to be a small, intimate setting. We try to keep them to no larger than 15, maybe 20 tops for a class. And what we do is we just share our experiences. We share with them, okay, how to pick a project, how to research a project. For example, the Archives de Seville, the British Museum, where to get primary research, whether you want to do one on your own or getting involved in a group. Once you have this, and then how do you get funding to do something like this? Because a lot of people would love to do it, but they don't have the funds. So we share with them, how we're able to obtain funding to do this. And we also talk to them, some of our knowledge. And you can relate with this. You said it great yourself. You have to know nowadays, because there's some areas, just based on some of the legal rulings, where you really can't work because you might get in trouble, or you can, but you have to make sure you have the permits in place, or some places where if you get permission, you're good. Right. It's one of those worlds where you need to know your legal standing before mounting an expedition, because God knows you don't want to do all this research and have this great project and buy all this equipment and go and just like, oh, wait, I can't get a permit to actually do a recovery here. Yeah. So, we address that. We address like the equipment that you'll need. And what we try and do is we're there for the people. One of the things I always tell them, it's like, look, here's the stuff we're going to go over. If you don't see anything there, talk to us, ask us. We keep it very informal, almost like, one-to-one. And we can go in any direction you want, because, not so much myself, but some of the other legends I'm working with, I'll say this, we can cover or go anywhere in any direction you want to, or answer any questions you may have. And this way, because the last thing we want is someone who has, we got a group that's flying in from Germany we're doing in a couple of days. And we just did a class 2 weeks ago where we've had people flying from all over the world. It was another group. They flew all the way from Germany. I'm like, holy heck. I don't want someone flying all this way.
Right.
And then they go back and it's like, oh, that was really great, but, I wish they talked about this. That's why we say, we're here to serve you. And, it's about the history, because some people do it because they're not planning on doing an expedition or anything or being involved, but they just love, history. They love learning about it. And then we also take them out diving onto authentic Spanish galleon wreck sites, because, it's one thing to, have like the classroom, we show them some of our tools, some of our equipment, some of the stuff we've created, how to get funding, how to work a wreck, all this stuff. But until you're out there actually diving on it, because literally we had one gentleman come out there and he's like, where's the wreck? I don't see any wreck. Where's it? I'm like, it's all around you. He's like, I don't see anything. And then once I showed him what he needed to be looking for, he's like, oh my God, you're right.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. I'm right in the middle. And, people don't realize this is a true story. My dad, Commander Weller, when he wrote the book about Mel Fisher, there's a section in there, when they did finally find the main, I guess now they call it the main cultural deposit, the main wreck site of the Etosha, here's this pile of silver bars. I mean, God, hundreds and hundreds of these huge, silver bars are 80 pounds. They're big boys. And the funny thing was, it was covered with fishing lures. From people that were out there fishing, their line got snagged on. They didn't realize their line got snagged on a stack of hundreds of silver bars. Maybe $600 million below there. And better yet, there was, I'm not sure exactly the number, I'm going to say about 3. There were about 3 spear gun shafts embedded in the pile of silver bars. People were swimming all around this thing, spearing fish.
And
they're getting themselves lodged and didn't know it. They couldn't get their thing out. And it's like, literally, you would think, really? Because people, like you mentioned, a lot of times they don't know what they're looking at. Because, unfortunately, many times, like Hollywood will portray it, gold looks in the ocean. It looks just like the way, it did when it went down.
Right.
And the same on land, too. But silver oxidizes, especially in the salt water. It gets this blackish, sometimes copperish, greenish appearance to it. And so people don't realize that what they're looking at. And that's why it's important to actually bring people out there. And it's just, it's just a lot of fun. We're down there when I do this. It's like, another day at the office. I'm down here in the gorgeous Keys, in the tropics. We're talking about Sunken Treasure, working on this, going out diving on, Spanish galleon wreck sites. It's like, what a rough day at the office.
But you have
to. Mark are phenomenal.
Yeah,
you've had him. He's a he's got more stories. You know, I mean,
yeah, you have to remember though that there's a lot of people that are coming to that have that same anticipation that you had when you were 11-year-old. And I mean, it is a dream come true. It would be for me. I would love to just dive on one of the old wrecks just one time in my life. Just do that. And I'm going to try and make plans and come down and be with you guys. I tell you what, let's do. Let's open up the phone lines, because I know that there's some people out there that are wanting to talk to you tonight. The number is 270-495-0315. And if somebody in the chat will put that number in there for me, because I'm watching 4 screens and a mixing board right here, and it's a little difficult. 270-495-0315. Call in and talk to Brad and all of his very illustrious resume that he has put together.
And some of it's true.
And some of it's true.
I stole a line from Fizz. That's one of his lines. He's got some great lines.
What was it that he said? He had all kind of stories and some of them were true?
Yeah, he says that as joking around. Like I said, he's great. I know you've had him on the air before.
Yeah.
He's great. He's a great presenter.
Yeah, and loved having him. We've had so many. Allison said, I'd love to call, but I'll lose the show. Hey, Allison, you can go back and pick up the archive of what you missed. Go ahead and call in. Love to talk to you. Allison has become one of my favorite people since we had her on the show. She is, she's been down there at the workshop. And by the way, she pointed out that she would like for you guys to have an all-ladies workshop. If you do, and I'm down there, I may...
You're going to book that one?
Yeah, I'll book that one. As part of an instructor, make me part of the crew. You know, make me an honorary member of the crew that time. But go ahead.
Real quick, I don't know if we have time before we pick up a call. One thing I wanted to share, which was interesting, when you mentioned about some of the people that come to the class have that dream, Mark Littleton has got a great story because he came to the class with his son. He was one of the attendees.
Right. And
hello?
Yeah, I've still got you. You still got me?
Yeah, it just sounded a little different there.
It did because we got a call on. Let's go ahead and get to this call.
Gotcha.
We've got Allison Walker on. What's going on, Allison?
Hey, how did you know it was me?
I've got you in the system here. I've got you tagged.
All right.
Okay.
That makes me feel special. Hi, Captain Brad. How are you? I miss you guys.
Hey, Allison, great to hear from you. Great to hear. Yeah, I was going to say, he's got all these screens where you can probably see everything. Nothing secret with Boy. Oh, my goodness.
I can't. Your workshop was the most incredible experience, and have really drilled that treasure hunting into me. That it's so inspiring, and I highly recommend anyone and everyone, even if you just snorkel. I never got to dive, and I will be coming back to take Mark up on finishing my workshop portion, but
great.
It was just so fascinating. I could listen to you guys for days. I'll bring more rum even.
Fizz will love you for that. You bring rum, you're Fizz's best buddy. Fizz is such a great guy.
I know you didn't get to enjoy yours, but I'll bring something special for you. But do you have any new projects that you can talk about on the go or in the background that you're allowed to speak of? Or?
Sure. And, one thing I was going to also mention, because you hit on a key point, we've also had people come to the workshop, and you can find more about it if you go to scubawise.com, or I think there's a link on there to my TreasureExpeditions.com where we've got information on there. There's a Facebook page. There's more info on it. But we've had people come out there that don't even go diving. They just go out on the boat. They just love the history. They just, love being a part of it. So, like I said, we've had people do that. But a couple things. We're planning, of course, heading back out on the 17-15 fleet. And so we're all looking forward to that. And Fizz is looking forward to that. And we're going to be out there with a Pandion again. And, it's amazing, just segueing here. we're lucky enough to have that vessel. That vessel has found, for its size, more treasure than any other vessel, that size. It's had over about $7 million come over the transom of that vessel. And it's a legend in itself. I remember when I first started diving with Commander Weller way back in 85. I'm showing my age. And, he owned the Pandia, and we're out there diving. Now, Fizz, Mark, and I are taking it. We're planning on doing some more work on the 15 fleet. I know Fizz has got some projects in the Gulf, and I probably should let him talk about those if you'd like, but he's got those. I've got one which was really interesting, which would have been a great TV show. We actually had a production team we were filming, which would have been in the Seychelles, which you can imagine the diving there would be spectacular. Oh, my God.
My.
Yeah, I think they've got more tropicals there than anywhere else in the world. There's an abundance of different types of tropical fish, and we've been on the pirate Oliver Levasseur, and as legendary pirate treasure. And it was interesting because one of my friends, a very prominent archaeologist, was doing research. He said, yes, Oliver Levasseur, he was real. He was hung. He did capture the Cabo, which was incredibly loaded with treasures. One of the wealthiest Portuguese galleons is carrying a huge amount of treasure. He did recover that. No one's found the treasure to this date. And, it almost would have been like the movie The Goonies. Have you seen The Goonies, Allison? You must have.
Oh, I love it. I watch it over and over. I love it.
Yeah. I got to tell you, I think all of us treasure hunters, that's one of our favorite movies, The Goonies.
Absolutely.
And it would be just like that. We're actually going in through the caves, and, there could be hidden traps and stuff going through those caves. And that's one, project in TV, potential TV show. Another one, which is kind of interesting, which I'm working with another production team and with my buddy Mick on, it's dealing with, Rome was sacked several times before it finally fell, unfortunately. And it's dealing with some of the loot from one of the sacks of Rome. And it would be primarily located in Italy and Spain, and this would be a land as opposed to diving. So that's something we're moving forward with with a TV production crew, that one's going to be interesting. Hopefully it'll go into full production. I know right now, Fizz and I are really anxiously looking forward to getting back on the 17-15 fleet. We got a couple other projects, but I don't know if I can talk about them. Sorry. At least not live on the air, with something being recorded. Fizz will beat me up. He may be older, but he'll give me a whack upside the head.
Have you been ever invited up to Oak Island or share any thoughts on that, or helping Gary out? I know Gary's amazing as well. Gary Drayton.
Yeah, he's a great guy. And I remember when he first started getting involved in this, again, I'm showing my age. Boy, I'm getting old. When
I'm probably older than you.
Oh, you don't look it. So, God bless you. But yeah, I remember when he would come over and stuff, and yeah, he's been really successful on that. And I've spoken to the production team. It's a niche show. It's a great story. About digging down, and I think it was every 10 feet there were some wooden platforms, and I think it was at 90 feet there was, these two kids had found it. There was a stone marker saying something like, 10 feet from here is the treasure, but, why they didn't keep digging? I'd have kept digging. They stopped, and then they say, we'll finish this tomorrow. And then, of course, they go there tomorrow, and it's filled up with water. So, and then, hence it's still going to this day. So I haven't, to be honest with you, I haven't watched the show, though. But to be honest with you, I haven't watched the shows that I've done on Expedition Unknown. I don't have time for watching much TV. I don't even know when I'm on TV. A friend tells me. So, yeah.
I bet. I just wish you guys all the best, and stay healthy and be safe. And I hope to see all you guys in later this year in Christmas and New Year's. I'm planning on coming down for 3 weeks.
That would be great. Look forward to it.
You
keep watching.
Allison, you send me your itinerary when you're going to go down, and I may plan to go down at the same time. You guys were talking about Oak Island. Our good friend Steve Fizzulik was the first diver that worked with, at the first season there, worked with the Oak Island crew, and still probably found the most significant find that they found there. You remember that? Yes, that's right. The very first coin was found by Steve Fizzulik. Yeah. And Steve likes to brag. He said, I'm the only one that's really found any treasure on Oak Island. There's been some other nice things found there, but Steve did a great job, and we've had Steve on a time or two and think a lot of him. But, yeah, that'd be a project for you to go and work on as well.
Well, I'm going to push Captain Fizz into the ladies-only group. So I'll get talking to Captain Fizz, and we'll push one of the wives.
I don't think you're going to have to do much pushing. I just really don't. Knowing Fizz.
Boy, you stole my line. I was just about to say that.
Yeah, I think that's a done deal right now as we speak.
I think so too. Oh gosh!
But don't make that. Don't make that when I come. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to be an honorary member of the crew because I want to go.
You can always wear a wig or be the bartender.
Yeah, I can just.
There you go.
I can just identify as a woman that day. That's permissible today, so I'll just do that.
That's true. You could.
Hey, Allison, good to hear from you.
Nice talking to you.
Yeah.
You too. Big hug.
And
bye.
Bye. Talk to you later then.
Bye, Allison.
Great person right there. Absolutely great person, and she has such a story. I tell you what, guys, yeah. If you won't go back, I'd have to look at my records here, but go back and listen to the show with Allison Walker. And if you can listen through that show without shedding a tear, I will pay for you to go to Scuba Wise, because I don't think that anybody can listen to that show and not be touched by her story. Just a great person all the way around. Where we at, Brad? Where were we at before we got the call?
Well, one thing I was going to share with you when you mentioned about the coin being found on Oak Island, it reminded me, and this is actually this is one of Fizz's stories that I was going to share with you, which is interesting because, when we look back in the history, we segment, civilizations to certain areas, and we're always thinking, well, they didn't get out that much, they weren't traveling the world like we are now. We have this very isolationist view, which is kind of strange because, there's always legends of finding stuff, like Roman or Phoenician stuff, pre-Columbian. And this is a true story. When Fizz this is in the Pacific Ocean, when he was looking for the San Jose, fabulously wealthy Spanish treasure galleon. Great story. I'm sure he talked about it. But, the interesting thing, yes, they did find a lot of treasure, but the very first coin that he found underwater was a Roman coin.
Wow.
Now, how did it get there? How did it get on the Pacific side of Panama? You think about that, and it just kind of like, yes, maybe some guy was, some very wealthy coin collector was on his yacht and just happened to be walking alongside, on his vessel and carrying his coin collection, and one of the coins he bumped into something and fell off and went into the water. But I don't think so. But there's a lot of evidence that, the Phoenicians were over in this area. We know now that the Vikings were here in the Americas before Columbus. I still give Columbus a heck of a lot of credit for what he did.
Right.
You see the size of those vessels. I wouldn't have wanted. They went out to sea in those. I'm like, oh my God, you crossed the Atlantic in that? Holy heck. You are some brave men.
That was
an interesting story.
Yeah, that was high on the crazy meter as well. But yeah, the more treasure that is brought up from land and sea, the more that we're realizing that there were cultures way back that had made it this far. And I think that that's a proven fact, now. And, the more that we find, the more pieces to that puzzle are going to be put together. Whether they came across the land bridge into Alaska and down or what have you, there's just there's ways that they could have got here. If Columbus got here, other people could too.
Sure. Yeah, and there's also, and I wish I could cite my source on this, but I've heard that, because when I was doing some work on that gold sarcophagus that was lost, it was en route to the British Museum when I was over in Egypt, and I was doing some research over in there. But I remember hearing, again, legend that, and one of the tombs, I don't know if this is the Valley of the Kings, because I was there also, but they had found coca leaves in one of the tombs there, which, are not indigenous to that area. There are none. The only place that they exist was in South America, right, with the Incas. And so, it kind of makes you wonder on some of this stuff. I mean, maybe, there was something that was grown there at the time or not. I don't know. But again, something that shows that, there could have been some culture. I know Fizz was doing a project in Central America, and literally it was one of the archaeologists from the University of Denver, top archaeologist, who saw some of the writing, and he said, this is a pre-Columbian structure, and yes, that is Phoenician writing.
Yeah.
So,
and just look at, and I don't know if it's the Incas or the Mayas, the pyramids that they have down there. Look at how similar that they are to the Egyptian ones. And there's even talk that in and around Memphis, Tennessee, that there is a similar one that was there, a similar mound that had that pyramid shape, even here in America, And so there's a lot of evidence that people traveled and went more distance than we give them credit for.
Yeah, I think we always have this view that we're looking back on them as being so primitive and stuff. But if you think about it, no one's yet figured out how they built the pyramid. I don't know. I've watched some shows in history, and they'll come up with some theories, but nothing concrete, nothing that really holds up. I think to this day, no one still has yet to figure out. I mean, I've been on the Great Pyramid. Actually, literally been on it.
Right.
The guards had to say, no, you can't climb up the Great Pyramid. They pulled me down. But I mean, those stones are huge. I mean, tons. We'd have a hard time with even our modern equipment trying to build something like that. It's so precise.
I don't know
the layout of it.
I don't know that we could do that with modern equipment, and all of the placement of those. And I've seen some shows that show the dimensions and the alignment of that and everything, and the precision of the alignment. We're talking quarters of an inch. We're not talking inches or feet. And that's unheard of. I mean, it's extremely hard to even do that today. Even the Romans had a form of concrete that we can't match today.
Well, I didn't know that. But that's amazing. Yeah. Wow.
Jerry Burball put in the chat earlier some kind of project that you guys have at Douglas Beach. Is that something that you can talk about? Or that you know about?
Sure, that's actually there's debate about, it's one of the 1715, one of the wrecks from the 1715 fleet. There's some debate about which ship it was, just because that wreck site has produced more gold than any of the other sites out there. It's amazing the amount of gold that's come off of that site. It's one of the vessels that sank in the 1715 fleet. That was actually where I found my first, Spanish piece of 8, my Sunken Treasure. That was where I first started diving with Bob. He was always working. He called it the Nieve site. I think they now call it the Douglas Beach wreck site, because there is some debate as to, the identity of that wreck. But that's where I found, like I said, really that's where I found my first piece of 8, and then, of course, found a lot more. And then that's where I found my first gold doubloon, and then found more on other wreck sites too. But yeah, it's a neat wreck. And the thing that amazes me is that it's always producing treasure. I mean, these wrecks from the 15 fleet, they've been worked by professionals, dedicated professionals that
for years
are out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're working since the 60s, and they're out there every season. You know, sometimes you can have 12 boats out there working these wreck sites, and, you know, several working the Navy site. And, you know, it's amazing that it still keeps producing treasure. Not as much as it used to. You know, unfortunately, they've been worked pretty heavily, but there's still so much treasure out there. I mean, we'll never find it all. Never. There'll always be some more treasure out there.
So what are you guys going to do at Douglas Beach? Are y'all doing research on that or what?
It's one of the areas that we've done some work on. You know, we have some areas there which I think are interesting to look at. We've got a couple different areas on the 15th Fleet that, you know, we'd like to look at. So I don't want to go into too much detail.
Yeah.
Because I want to say, yeah, all of our research says the treasure's here, and we're going to go right here. No, by the way, this is the GPS coordinates.
That's what I want. Yeah, yeah. You can just PM me. Just send me in the email that we've been sharing back and forth. And you've already mentioned it, but Mark Littleton talked about the Pandion project. Go into a little bit more detail on it.
Well, the Pandion, I mean, she's probably, you know, other than the Virgilona used to be the older one, which had a tremendous history behind her, but unfortunately she's no longer with us, you know, which is a shame. There was so much history behind that. But the Pandion, I mean, it's an amazing vessel because, you know, the history behind this stuff and the wrecks that it's done, and it was literally owned by, it used to be a six-pack dive boat down in the Keys. I know the whole history. This is a part of my life, this vessel.
Right. And
then John Hallis bought it, and he brought it to the 1715 Fleet, and he found tremendous amounts of treasure with that. I mean, there was an area on the 15th Fleet called, I think it's called the Jewelry Patch, where, you know, they were finding all this work jewelry. And again, I mean, so many coins and gold coins and silver coins this boat is bringing up. And then, you know, Commander Weller, Bob Frogfoot. He got the nickname Frogfoot. This shows you a little bit about his personality. He was a Navy frogman, you know, UDT, former Navy SEALs, and someone, instead of frogman, wrote Frogfoot. And Bob just took the name, it was a joke, and he just said, I like that name, it stuck. And so he's always called himself Frogfoot, you know. Again, that's, you know, it's good when someone doesn't take themselves too seriously. And, you know, he got it, and then he switched it over to a diesel engine, and about a year after he had it, that, you know, I worked with him on it, and he owned that for a long time. And then eventually he had to sell it. It went through one more person. Then I ended up owning it personally for a large time. Now it's owned by the three of us, myself, Captain Fizz, and Mark.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's like the little boat that could. I mean, it's such a magnificent vessel. That boat, what I love about it, because she can do about 25 knots. It's the only salvage boat that I've seen with a blower on the back of it that can get airborne over wake. You know, she can go that fast. She can blow holes. She can get in shallow. She's got like maybe a foot and a half to most 2 foot draft, so she can get in shallow and work. Wide beam. I've taken that boat. She's been all over. She's been done projects in the Gulf of Mexico. She's been down in the Keys, working down the Keys. I just take it all over to Georgia. We had projects up there, and I remember one time we have a project up there we've done work on, and we need to move forward on. We're at 10 miles out at sea with this vessel, and it's like a 26-foot. It's got a very wide beam on it. And we're out there in a small craft advisory. And, you know, no other boats out there, but the Pandion's out there, and she's weathering it just fine, you know. So, I mean, it's one of the legends out there.
Yeah.
You know, so even just about everyone in the industry recognizes, you know, her. John Brandon was saying, it's like, you know, the Pandion's one of the last of the legends. You've got, you know, like the legendary salvagers, you know, Mel Fisher, John Brandon, Mo Mulliner, Harold Holden, Carl Fismer. You know, then you've got like the famous vessels,
right? And
the Pandion's one of the last of them. So, yeah,
and they're in that same kind of Hall of Fame, I guess that you could say.
Yeah,
and salvage and everything. What if somebody is coming down to Scuba Wise and they're going to get to live their dream of diving on a shipwreck there, but they want to know the history of that whole Treasure Coast before they do, where they can get the full experience of all of that? Is there one book or one reference that you could name that is a must-read before you come down there?
Wow. there's, a lot of them. And I'm looking at my bookcase right now. Fizz has written a couple books, and, I would have to recommend, several of the books that Fizz has written. I mean, he's written some great books about treasure hunting and the projects he's done and working down in the Keys and working on the 1715 fleet. There's some great information there. If you can grab any of his books, that would be great. The 1715 fleet, Pieces of 8, that's one of the classic books out there. Commander Bob Weller, he's written, I think, about 6 books on Sunken Treasure. I think it was one of them actually Sunken Treasure on Florida Reefs. You can get a hold of that one. That's another great one.
Is there?
Those are some of the ones that come to mind right away. But,
is there a book that identifies the ships that sank there, the Spanish ships that sank in that region? Just goes through, and that's all that it does. It's just kind of a catalog of those ships.
Well, let me ask you, because there's so many ships that if you're talking about just along the Florida coast, or are you asking like the 1733 fleet, which was some of the ships we dived down the Keys? Or are you asking about the 1715 fleet, or all the wrecks of Florida?
I don't know. Probably the 1715 fleet.
Okay. Yeah, the 1715 fleet, like I mentioned, Fizz in his books, he addresses that. Bob in his books, I'm actually looking at them in my library right now, and I've got a couple bookcases full of books on treasure. And I'm looking at several of Bob's books right now. I'm actually pulling one out. It's that's Shipwrecks near Robasso Beach. But he's got Sunken Treasure. Here it is right now. Sunken Treasure on Florida Reefs, which is a great one. Dealing with the 1715 fleet. Pieces of 8. That's was written by the Real 8 group. That's one of the classics. It's kind of like a collector's for most people in their library on as far as like the 1715 fleet. I believe Rob Westrick's written some good he's got a book on it, which is a good on the 1715 fleet.
Yeah.
If you're interested in just, the coast of Florida, my friend, God, I'm holding it right now. I can't believe this. I'm looking at Steve Singer. This is going back. I remember when we all had, our hair's getting a little gray now. We were a lot younger then. And he wrote a great book. I'm actually holding it right now, which is Shipwrecks of Florida. Yeah. Which just lists, the shipwrecks of the entire coastline of Florida, if anyone's interested. And he does it by, both by time and region. And it's funny, this was one of the first books that I ever appeared in. And I remember as a kid being excited, it's just in the acknowledgments. It's like one of the pages there. He's like, he talks about, because he was one of the divers under Commander Weller, too. And he talked about, I'd like to thank the entire, Bob and Margaret and the Pandion crew. He starts listening. All of a sudden, I saw my name. I'm like, oh, I'm famous. I'm in print.
And you're even more famous now because you've been on RELICS Radio. I tell you.
Exactly. That and $1 will buy me a cup of coffee.
There you go. Yeah, that's kind of what I was talking about. Just one that kind of looked at some of the ships and stuff. What an amazing place, and what an amazing story that you have had, Brad. And by the way, folks, I've got most of his links to his website and different things in the description here of this show, so you can go there and you can click on those links. You're really going to be surprised because we've only touched the surface of the things that he has done. But Brad, I certainly do appreciate you coming on the show tonight. You've been an absolute wonderful guest. Pleasure. Yeah.
It's been an absolute honor and a pleasure, and thank you so much. I've heard about you, and I was actually really looking forward to this.
Yeah.
And I really love the show that you put here, and I really like what you're providing to people, because you're providing a dream too, because you're providing information through your podcast or your videos. You're sharing your knowledge with people so that they can live out their dreams, and you're allowing people to share their dreams, and you're helping fulfill their dreams. And that's what it's all about. In the last analysis, the greatest treasure out there is the people you meet, the friends you have, the stories you can tell. That's the greatest treasure. And you're making that happen, buddy. So it's been a pleasure and an honor.
Well, I appreciate that, really do, and I agree with you 100%. The greatest treasure that any of us are going to find are the people that we meet on this journey that we take, and I think my lot in life is to showcase other people and to get their story out. Some, like you, have extraordinary resumes. We have some people that come on that are relative newcomers, but they are all treasure hunters in their heart, and that's kind of what we like to do. Yep. Is that. Yep. What advice would you give to anybody that has the dream that you had when you were 11 years old, whether it's treasure under the water or on land? Give them a good piece of advice.
Okay, this is going to probably get a little bit choked up here. Bob had something that it was in all his books, or Commander Weller, in all his books, his famous saying was, follow your dreams.
Right.
Whenever he wrote something, he'd always sign it, follow your dreams, Frogfoot. And it was interesting when I started my business, the gentleman who was doing my business cards came up with this, slogan, and I'm just kind of like, what is that? What is, I couldn't figure out, because it was Latin, but it was Latin for follow your dreams, and that became my company logo. And it's just, I think, life is all about fulfilling your dreams, and if you can do that, I mean, you're richer than anyone out there if you can do that. I mean, because in the last analysis, I actually have it tattooed when Bob passed over the bar. His come was crossed anchors. I have it there, and it says like, live life, no regrets. Meaning, if you dream about going to Harvard, do it. Yeah. Try. If you fail, well, fail big. At least you learn something. There's no failing if you learn. You can always just keep going at it, and you'll win.
Yeah.
Just don't give up. Like Edison said, the biggest key to success is trying one more time. So whether your dream is to go to Harvard, climb the Matterhorn, find the lost Dutch moon gold mine, find some World War II treasure, do it. Yeah. Go for it. Live out your dream. You'll be so much happier. Yeah. Because your life will be so much more rewarding. Oh, and by the way, the saying in Latin is insisto vestri somnium, which is Latin for follow your dream.
Great advice. Great advice. Hang on the line. You and I will say our goodbyes as soon as I close the show here. But I can't thank you enough for coming on. Very, very good show.
Been a pleasure, as always.
Okay. And appreciate all of you folks that came in on the chat. Appreciate everybody that will be listening to the show. Bradley Williamson, go and check him out. Check the links in the description of this video here. Great guy, great resume, great night, great show that he put on, and I really do appreciate him coming in. And thanks again to Allison for calling in. And a lot of times when you don't have call-ins, people are enthralled by the show and they don't want to break the flow. So I know that a lot of you probably would like to call in, but just didn't because you were interested in listening where the thing was going to go. We're going to have Brad back on again in the future, and some of the other guys with Scuba Wise as well. We got Mark Littleton, had him scheduled and had to reschedule, but we're going to have him on later in the year. So we'll be back here next Thursday night at 8 o'clock on RELICS Radio. Join us then. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on RELICS Radio. We really do appreciate it. Be sure and join us live every Thursday night at 8 o'clock Eastern here on Spreaker, or you can catch the archive show at RELICS Radio on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and many other podcast outlets. RELICS Radio is also syndicated on the Cutting Edge Radio Network and is broadcast around the world. Please take a minute and hit the like button, and be sure and follow us so you'll get notifications of all of our upcoming broadcasts. You can also find us on YouTube at Diggin' with 7 or Tennessee Jeff, or you can check us out on our RELICS Radio Facebook group page or Adventures in History on Facebook. If you'd like to get in touch with us, then send an email to relicsradio@outlook.com. We'd love to hear from you. We hope that you'll join us next Thursday night. And until then, get out there and dig some history.